Alright, so in this video we're going to cover the Miele warranty and the maintenance service on the actual dryer itself. So first we're going to open the back of the dryer, make sure the heater is clean and that the bearing is lubricated so it does not cause an issue in the future. And then we're going to get to the top of the unit, make sure that the relays and the actual temperature sensor is in order. So let's go ahead and remove all the screws holding the back panel of the heating assembly so we can access it and clean it if we have to. So there's a couple screws running around the actual panel, so make sure to unscrew all of them. Don't worry, they're all the same size. You don't have to remember which one goes where. Perfect. This is where our heating assembly and the bearing is. So let's go ahead and clean out the heating first. So Miele is one of the many dryers that uses a resettable fuse. So usually if your heating dies, the fuse just needs to be resetted by pressing the button in the middle like so. So here it's fine obviously, but let's go ahead and actually open the heater and clean it from inside. So the heater just sits on two screws, so remove those two screws and the whole assembly will come out from its bracket. Now let's go ahead and inspect the actual element for any lint buildup. So what you want to check is if thermal fuse has anything or the actual temperature sensor. So in this case they're very clean. Same with coils, make sure there's no lint in there and they're very clean, or it might cause issues in the future and the coils might burn out. Now this element is clean, so let's go ahead and do the rest of the maintenance with the bearing. Alright, now we're going to remove the actual metal bracket out of the way that holds the bearing assembly back in place. So it just sits on two screws. Once you remove them, the metal bracket should come out with the proper movement. And just pull it. Perfect. Now the little trick here is just to spin it to the side, and the actual plastic pieces are connected by a little plastic bracket, so they will come apart and will come out much easier if you separate them like so. Once you separate, just remove one piece and the other and it will be out of the way. Now this is where the actual lubricant sits. It sits in the plastic assembly, so the bearing is always lubricated when it spins. Now it's enough of lubricant inside, so you don't need to add anything here, well at least in our case. So let's install it back, it's all good to go and connect it. Now under heavy weight of the drum, you might need a big wrench to adjust it to the proper size so the metal bracket can go on top of it and secure it back in place for a very good long time. Now let's make sure that the bracket is secured properly and sits in its openings correctly, because if you don't install it tight enough or don't install it properly, the drum will be moving and making a lot of noise, and it might even break the plastic bracket that holds the lubricant in. Perfect, it's all lined up. Now we just gotta put a couple of screws to secure the bracket and so it sits tight in place. Now that we've cleaned and checked everything, there's nothing to worry about in the back. There's no lint buildup, the lubrication is good. So now we're just gonna go ahead and install the heating assembly back in, and once it's done, we're gonna place the top cover back on and make sure that everything is airtight and there's no air escaping anywhere. Now let's just place the top cover. Now I usually leave one screw in so it's easier to secure. After I secure one top screw, so the panel will be sitting in place while you're screwing in the rest of the screws. Otherwise you'll have to play around and maybe hold the panel with your knee while sitting down in a comfortable position. Alright, we're all done in the back. We've cleaned everything, we've lubricated everything, we made sure everything is good. Let's go onto the top of the machine. Now Miele is pretty much the only manufacturer that keeps the screws on the side, and I love that the way they do that because it's much easier to access on site. So let's go ahead and remove the screws on the side behind this plastic finish. You may squeeze it a bit with the flat screwdriver and remove it like so in order to access the actual screw. Now sometimes the bracket inside stucks and it keeps the cover closed even though the screws are unscrewed. So just push it with the thin screwdriver and make sure it's out of the way. As you can see, I couldn't take it off right away, so I had to press in the actual plastic bracket until I could remove it. And what I'm talking about is right here. This is the plastic bracket that holds together. So what you want to do is push it with the screwdriver so it comes out. So first thing first, as mentioned in previous episode, we're gonna replace this little temperature sensor or the moisture sensor, you can call it. So the way it works is that those two main pieces are rubbing against the metal drum. So when the clothes are wet, they're touching the metal, and then the metal conducts some kind of electricity vibes through those little sensors, so it gives the reading to the main board, and if those two pieces are erased completely, it will not give proper readings. So it's good to replace it just in case, so the customer in the future doesn't run into the issues like so. So in order to remove them, we're gonna remove the actual weight piece that sits on top of it, and then we're gonna simply disconnect the actual piece that needs to be replaced, and we're gonna cut off all the wires that hold it back in place. Alright, as I said, it just comes out like this, so just pull it out and it will disconnect from its arm like so. And simply, you will just be replacing this piece. So let's go ahead and cut off those wires. So out was the old part, and then we're gonna replace it in with the new part. So now all we have to do is just extend the lines from the new part. Well, this is not a very new part. We found a used part around our shop. It's a little bit tricky, but the customer didn't pay us for replacing this part, and then it's a little bit expensive, and we didn't have time to order it. So in the future reference, it's best to replace it with the new one, but we're just doing it for demonstrative purposes. So here we're just gonna connect the actual connectors on the male part of the actual sensor, and then we're gonna do the female parts on the actual unit. After you squeeze the actual aluminum part, make sure that the connector sits tight and snug and doesn't go anywhere. Let's go back to the unit. Okay, so now we're just gonna clean off the wires that are running from the actual unit. I'm using a very special tool that makes my job much easier, but you don't have to do that. You may use the construction knife to clean off insulation from the wires. Now you won't have to do that every time you replace this sensor. This sensor is good for at least a couple years, but once you create connectors like so, you may swap it every time much easier. So let's go ahead and put the female connectors on each wire so they're good for future purposes as well. Perfect. Now just place in the used or new part that you're replacing back on itself and make sure it's facing wires back. And now let's just connect the connectors back in, and once you connect them, we gotta make sure that the wires are not loose and they're sitting in exactly the same position. And once they're connected, put the weight back on and make sure everything is tight. The other part of the maintenance, what we're gonna do is we're gonna make sure that the drive belt is not worn off anywhere or ripping. So the little trick here is to grab a duct tape, cut a little piece and place it on top of the drum like so. Let's make sure we don't make this piece way too long so it doesn't get stuck in the actual motor wheel. Perfect. Perfect. Now simply grab a flashlight so you can see the belt clearly. Flash it up and let's spin the drum. So the trick here is to spin it very slow and make sure that we get every piece of the belt. So if you see any rips or anything is going wrong, it's best to replace the belt before it does any further damage, because while ripping, it may damage the actual motor, wheel, or the pulley. So make sure that the belt is in good condition. So keep spinning the drum until you meet the actual duct tape mark that you left, so then you're sure that you've checked everything. Another maintenance step that you can do is you can clean out the relay contacts. I don't recommend this step to the amateurs. It's actually for professionals. So what you could do is you could remove the relay from its housing and then clean all the contacts. Now, you don't usually have to do that. You usually only do that in case of big issues that you're facing, but it's good to do a preventive maintenance. But once again, while you're doing it, you gotta be very careful to not damage anything. So go ahead, grab the actual relay, and you can see there's 4 little plastic brackets, 2 on each side. So what you have to do is just uplift the plastic a bit and the top cover will come off. Be careful, the plastic is a little bit fragile, so it might break while you're trying to remove. But even if you're breaking every single bracket, the piece will still sit tight. So don't be afraid and apply a bit of force while removing it. Alright, so this is where our actual relay is. So the way it works is that when the machine engages, it switches on those contacts. This is how the unit controls the power flow. So what happens is, from touching and engaging, there is ash buildup over the time. So what it can happen is the power might not pass through the copper lines properly. So what you want to do is you want to make sure those contacts are clean of the ashes and can engage properly. Unfortunately, I did not find a metal brush around my shop. Someone probably stole it as usual. So let's go ahead and clean it off with the screwdriver. Now, it's not the best way, but it will definitely do the trick for now. Now simply place the top cover back on and let's go install it back in. Now remember, the connectors will not go back into the wrong hole, so don't worry, you won't be able to screw it up even more. So just connect the wires and put it back in until it clicks. Now the last thing of the day, this is something that most of the people miss, and this is usually what could have caused your problem with not heating. So this screen may look clean, but what you don't know is that it might have microscopic dust. So what microscopic dust is, it's something gets stuck in the actual mesh and it restricts the airflow. So it may look clean, but the air will not pass through it. So what will happen is the machine will think that there is no proper airflow and will deactivate the heating element. So let's go ahead and clean it as well. So how do you know if it's clean of microscopic dust? If the water can pass like so, it means that it's clean. So just in case, we're gonna make sure that the actual filter is fully clean as much as possible. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna place it back and make sure that it dries, like so. So those are the main tricks and tips to keep your dryer running for a longer period of time before you call the technician once again. So here I'm just going to be putting the top cover back on, but those are the basic tricks. Technically speaking, if you keep your dryer clean, you clean your filters on time, you make sure that your lint trap is clean at your home, you're not going to have issues for a very, very long time unless there is some component failure, in which case I do recommend calling a professional to inspect it for you. But in this video, you've seen the most of the tips that you can do with your Miele dryer. So follow them and ask any questions. If you're still experiencing any other issues with your appliance, don't hesitate and call us at 1-866 244-6051. Please subscribe to our channel, and if you could leave a like, comment, as well as share the video, we would greatly appreciate it. Stay in touch for more videos and let us know if you want something specific.